This man is crazy. Can you believe that in just 4 hours, he pulled off a takeover of a multi-million-dollar UK company? 4 hours. That's wild, right? And no, we're not talking about some Wall Street big shot. It was Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, leading his secret team in one of the most daring moves ever seen in financial history. This wasn't just a corporate takeover. It was about a small, emerging nation reclaiming its destiny. And the whole thing? It all started with rubber. Yes, rubber. Back then, Malaysia was the biggest rubber producer in the world. You'd think that would make the country rich, right? Well, nope. Malaysia was still struggling to lift itself out of poverty. Why? Here's the kicker. Malaysia's vast rubber plantations weren't owned by Malaysians. Instead, UK companies like Guthrie were the ones making bank. They controlled the rubber plantations and sent all the profits back to the UK, leaving Malaysia with next to nothing. Imagine watching your own country's wealth being drained away to fill someone else's pockets. The UK economy thrived, while Malaysia was left behind. How crazy is that? Enter Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He wasn't like your typical politician. He didn't play golf, didn't smoke, and wasn't from some fancy elite family. He was just a doctor who saw the injustice and decided to act. And to him, the situation wasn't just a financial issue. It was a disease that needed curing. Mahathir didn't want to just treat the symptoms. He wanted to perform surgery and fix the root of the problem. Guthrie wasn't helping. They refused to modernize the rubber plantations and didn't care about the long-term future of the Malaysian economy. Instead, they were focused on draining every bit of profit, leaving Malaysia's future in jeopardy. The final straw? Guthrie started selling off their Malaysian assets without even telling PNB, the Malaysian company that owned 25% of Guthrie. Mahathir had had enough. Enough is enough, he said. The future of 18 million Malaysians was on the line, and waiting any longer could be catastrophic. But Mahathir wasn't about to nationalize Guthrie. That could scare off foreign investors, and Malaysia needed investments to build its economy. Instead, Mahathir had a smarter plan. He was going to play the game just like the British. He would use the capital markets to launch a strategic takeover. The goal? Take control of Guthrie through the London Stock Exchange, using the same financial and legal tools that Britain had been using for decades. There was just one problem: money. Mahathir needed 1 billion Malaysian ringgit, about 75 billion USD in today's terms, to pull this off. That's a ton of cash, right? So where do you get that kind of money when you're an emerging nation? Enter Petronas, Malaysia's oil and gas giant. They stepped up, securing the capital needed for the operation. But having the money was only half the battle. This plan needed to be executed with precision, fast, quiet, and flawless. If anyone in London found out about the plan too soon, it would all fall apart. So, Mahathir gathered a secret team and partnered with some of the biggest financial players in the UK, like Rothschild and Rowan Pittman. These guys knew the ins and outs of the London Stock Exchange like nobody else. For months, Mahathir's team worked behind the scenes, studying the market, researching Guthrie, and preparing for the big day. September 7, 1981. That's when everything would go down. The plan? Buy up as many shares of Guthrie as possible, quickly and discreetly, before anyone in London even realized what was happening. The shares would be bought from all over, making it nearly impossible to track. It had to be perfect because one wrong move could sink the whole operation. As dawn approached, the tension was through the roof. This was it, the moment of truth. They were about to pull off one of the boldest financial operations in history, the Dawn Raid. Mahathir's team was ready, and Malaysia was about to reclaim control over its future. With everything in place, the money, the partners, the strategy, all they had to do was strike. The clock was ticking, and the world had no clue what was about to hit them. Malaysia was on the edge of something incredible. Mahathir's team wasn't just aiming for a business victory. They were about to make a statement to the entire world. They were about to show that Malaysia, once seen as just another former colony, was ready to rise on its own terms and play with the big boys. But would it work? Could this plan really change everything? Or would it all fall apart? And now, the plan is in motion. The Dawn Raid is about to shake up the financial world, and no one in the UK saw it coming. As the dawn of September 7th, 1981 approached, Malaysia's secret plan was set in motion. Mahathir's team, working with financial experts across the globe, began quietly buying shares of Guthrie from markets in Singapore, Hong Kong, and other international financial hubs. The clock was ticking, and the entire operation needed to be completed before London woke up. But the mission wasn't without its challenges. Despite the bold planning and meticulous strategy, a major setback threatened to derail the entire operation. OCBC Bank in Singapore, one of the critical institutions Malaysia needed to secure shares from, rejected Malaysia's offer to buy shares. This wasn't just a minor hiccup. If OCBC didn't cooperate, it could have failed the entire mission. Without their help, Malaysia wouldn't reach the 51% majority required to control Guthrie. The rejection came as a crushing blow. One mission, if failed, would doom the country's economic future for decades. But Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and his team weren't ones to give up. Instead of folding, they reached out to Genting Berhad, Bank Simpanan Nasional, and Kuwait for additional financial support. Kuwait, specifically the Kuwait Investment Office, played a pivotal role by providing the necessary capital to help Malaysia continue buying Guthrie shares. Alongside BSN and Genting, these institutions enabled Permodalan Nasional Berhad, PNB, to acquire the majority shares of Guthrie, allowing Malaysia to successfully complete the raid. In total, they managed to secure 51% of Guthrie's shares, taking control of the company in just under 4 hours. The entire mission relied heavily on these financial hubs and institutions. Despite the rejection from OCBC, Malaysia was able to proceed with Kuwait's involvement, as well as strategic purchases from M&G Investments and other retailers through Rothschild & Rowe and Pittman, ensuring Malaysia's majority control. In less than 4 hours, Malaysia had done the unthinkable. 51% of Guthrie's shares were in Malaysian hands. This gave them majority control of the company. The entire raid happened so fast and so discreetly that by the time anyone in London realized what was happening, it was already over. Guthrie, a symbol of British colonial power and pride, had been taken over by Malaysia. How did the British find out? Not through official channels. No one at Guthrie's headquarters had any idea. Instead, Guthrie's chairman found out the news like everyone else, through the radio. Can you imagine the shock? Waking up one morning and hearing that a company your country has controlled for decades is suddenly gone? The London Stock Exchange was thrown into chaos, and British shareholders were furious. Guthrie, once a crown jewel of the British Empire, was no longer theirs. The implications of the raid were massive. This wasn't just a business move, it was a national statement. Malaysia, under Mahathir's leadership, had just reclaimed control of its own resources and wealth. Guthrie's operations were immediately shifted to Kuala Lumpur, and Malaysia had proven itself as a force to be reckoned with. The takeover wasn't just about rubber. It symbolized Malaysia's determination to secure its economic future. But the raid didn't come without consequences. Britain was humiliated and didn't take it lightly. The British government quickly retaliated. They cancelled subsidies for Malaysian students studying in the UK, making it far more expensive for them to pursue higher education. They also denied Malaysia Airlines additional landing rights at Heathrow, limiting the country's access to one of the world's busiest airports. However, Mahathir wasn't the type of leader to back down. In response to the UK's actions, he launched the Buy British Last policy, a clear message that Malaysia would no longer rely on British goods and services. It was a bold political move that showed Malaysia wasn't afraid to cut ties with its former colonial rulers. And that's when Malaysia turned its eyes to the east. With the Look East policy, Mahathir began strengthening economic ties with Japan and China, shifting the country's trade and diplomatic focus away from the UK and toward these emerging powers. This policy would be pivotal in Malaysia's economic transformation, allowing the country to develop new industries and grow its global presence. The Dawn raid also marked a significant turning point for Petronas, Malaysia's state-owned oil and gas company. Petronas had played a critical role in funding the operation, and the success of the raid helped boost the company's profile on the global stage. Today, Petronas is one of the world's leading oil companies and a Fortune 500 company. Its rise can be traced back to the ambition and confidence that Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad demonstrated during this bold operation. Ironically, despite the initial tension and fallout, the relationship between Malaysia and the UK did eventually recover. Both nations realized that, despite the raid, they needed each other. By 1997, Malaysia's national car company Proton was allowed to enter the UK market, a significant step in mending the relationship. In 1998, Malaysia hosted the Commonwealth Games, solidifying its status as an influential member of the global community. Even the late Queen Elizabeth II herself visited Malaysia, showcasing the renewed respect between the two nations. The Dawn raid stands as one of the most audacious financial operations in history. Today, Sime Darby, the company that merged with Guthrie, is one of the world's largest producers of certified sustainable palm oil. What started as a covert raid on the London Stock Exchange turned into a monumental victory that reshaped the global economy and allowed Malaysia to take control of its destiny.